5 seconds. That's all it took for Alison Turner's perfect world to shatter into 1,000 pieces. "Rick, are you home?" A voice echoed through their expensive Chicago brownstone as she noticed unfamiliar stiletto heels by the staircase. The sound of splashing water from upstairs answered her question. Her heart pounded as she climbed those stairs, each step heavier than the last. Outside their bathroom door, she called her husband's cell phone and heard it ring from inside. At work, of course, he lied through the phone. In the middle of a Zoom meeting. "That's funny," Alison replied, her hand now on the doorknob, "because I'm standing outside our bathroom door and I can hear your phone ringing inside." She pushed open the door to find her husband of 5 years naked in their marble tub with a young woman she recognized, his co-worker. But this devastating betrayal would lead Alison down an unexpected path, straight into the orbit of Maxwell Harrison, a billionaire CEO worth over $4.5 billion, who would become obsessed with making her his wife. However, his intense pursuit would reveal secrets even more disturbing than her husband's affair. From humiliating heartbreak to a dangerous obsession masked as devotion, Alison's journey will leave you questioning, how well do we ever really know the people we let into our lives? If stories of shocking betrayal and unexpected second chances captivate you, hit that subscribe button and notification bell now. Drop a comment sharing your thoughts on forgiveness. Can some betrayals ever truly be forgiven? Only months before catching her husband in their bathtub with another woman, Alison Turner was living what many would call the American dream. At 32, she had climbed the corporate ladder at one of Chicago's most prestigious marketing firms, recently earning a promotion to team leader for their highest profile accounts. Her corner office overlooked the gleaming skyline, a daily reminder of how far she'd come from her modest Midwestern roots. Her professional success was matched only by what appeared to be an idyllic marriage. "Rick and I met during our senior year at Northwestern," she'd tell friends with genuine warmth. "We clicked immediately, both ambitious but grounded Midwesterners building a future together." Their wedding at the Chicago Botanic Garden had been featured in local magazines. Their Lincoln Park brownstone was showcased in design blogs. Friday date nights, twice-yearly vacations, and casual discussions about starting a family soon, Alison truly believed she had it all. But beneath this glossy exterior, cracks had begun to form. Looking back, the signs were there, Alison would later confess. "I just refused to see them." Rick's remote work schedule mysteriously shifted. His phone would go silent whenever she entered the room. Her expensive perfumes emptied faster than normal. Her favorite facial serums disappeared at an impossible rate. "You're imagining things, Ali," Rick would say with a laugh that once seemed affectionate but had grown dismissive. "You've been working too hard on that Westfield account. You're getting paranoid." For months, Alison questioned her own perceptions. Why would bottles she'd just purchased be nearly empty? Was she truly becoming forgetful from work stress? Had she actually misplaced her grandmother's silver bracelet, or was something else happening? The contrast between their public image, power couple extraordinaire, and these unsettling private moments grew sharper each day. The photo from their anniversary dinner showed beaming smiles for Instagram, yet Alison couldn't shake the memory of Rick checking his phone constantly throughout the meal. The perfect life she thought she had built was slowly revealing itself to be an elaborate illusion. The revelation came on a Thursday in May, a day Alison had originally planned to spend in Milwaukee at a client meeting. When the gathering was postponed due to the client's CEO falling ill, she decided to surprise Rick with lunch from their favorite delicatessen. Alison entered their home quietly, balancing takeout bags as she closed the front door. The house felt different, charged with an unfamiliar energy. Setting down her purse and the food, she noticed them, a pair of women's stiletto heels, carelessly discarded by the staircase. They weren't hers. "Rick, are you home?" she called, her voice bouncing through the first floor. No response came from his home office. Instead, Alison heard muffled voices and splashing water from upstairs, their master bathroom. The unmistakable sound of their oversized jetted tub running, the one they'd spent a fortune on during last year's renovation. Each step up the stairs felt like walking through concrete, her mind racing with alternative explanations. Perhaps his sister was visiting. Maybe a plumber was fixing the pipes. Deep down she already knew. Standing outside the bathroom door, Allison pulled out her phone and called Rick's number. From inside she heard his distinctive Sweet Home Chicago ringtone, followed by a curse and hushed whispers. "Hello?" Rick answered, his voice unnaturally high. "Hi, honey. Where are you right now?" Allison asked, her tone eerily calm. "At work, of course. In the middle of a Zoom meeting. Why?" "That's funny," Allison replied, her hand on the doorknob, "because I'm standing outside our bathroom door, and I can hear your phone ringing inside." The silence lasted only seconds, but felt endless. "Allie, wait, I can explain." She pushed open the door. Steam filled the bathroom, revealing a scene that burned into Emma's memory forever. There in their marble tub sat Rick, his expression frozen between shock and guilt. Alongside a young woman Allison recognized instantly, Victoria Torrey Winters, the junior financial analyst who had joined Rick's team 6 months ago. "Oh my God," gasped Torrey, attempting to cover herself with bubbles. "Allie, this isn't what it looks like," Rick stammered. Allison stood motionless, phone still at her ear, as though this bizarre connection was keeping her anchored to reality. Her eyes catalogued every detail: champagne flutes on the tub's edge, scattered rose petals, her birthday candles lit around their bathroom. "How long?" she asked, barely above a whisper. "Allie, please, let's talk privately," Rick pleaded. "How long?" Each word cut like ice. 3 months, Torrey answered when Rick remained silent, "but he said you two were." "Let me guess," Allison interrupted with a hollow laugh. "He told you we were separated, that we were getting divorced, that I was cold and didn't understand him." The recognition in Torrey's eyes confirmed everything. Something snapped inside Allison. Without hesitation, she switched her phone to video and began recording, capturing their stunned expressions, the intimate setting, the evidence of their betrayal in high definition. "You have exactly 30 minutes to get dressed and get out, or this video goes to everyone. Your boss, your parents, our friends. Everyone." "You wouldn't?" Rick challenged, uncertainty crossing his face. "Try me," Allison replied, finger hovering over the share button. 29 minutes and counting. "Have you ever caught someone in a devastating lie? Was it a friend, partner, or family member? Share your story in the comments below. And if you're shocked by what happened to Allison, smash that like button and subscribe, because what happens next with the billionaire CEO will completely change the game. Instead of posting the video immediately, Allison made a series of calls, first to her parents, then to her older brother Michael, and finally to Rick's parents. Each conversation was brief, her voice breaking only once as she explained the situation to her mother. "Honey, we're coming right over," her mother had assured her. "Don't do anything until we get there." By the time Rick and Torrey had dressed and skulked downstairs, Allison's support system had assembled in the living room. Her father Robert, a retired judge, sat stone-faced on the sofa. Her mother Patricia clutched her hand supportively. Michael paced by the window, his expression thunderous, and most devastating for Rick, his own parents, Harold and Margaret Turner, stood in shocked silence by the fireplace. "What is this? An intervention?" Rick scoffed, though his bravado faltered as he met his father's disappointed gaze. "Richard Allen Turner," his mother began, using his full name as she had when he was misbehaving as a child. "I raised you better than this." What followed was 2 hours of painful confrontation. Torrey, mortified by the family gathering, attempted to slip out unnoticed, only to be stopped by Michael. "You don't get to just walk away from this," he told her firmly. "You're equally responsible." Under the collective pressure of both families, Rick eventually admitted to not only the affair with Torrey, but also to gaslighting Allison about her missing items. Torrey had been using Allison's expensive cosmetics and perfumes during their rendezvous. He had even borrowed some of Alison's jewelry for Tori to wear during their secret dates, pieces that Alison had reported missing weeks ago. "I thought I was losing my mind," Alison whispered, the realization of how thoroughly she had been manipulated washing over her. "You made me think I was crazy." "I just panicked," Rick admitted. "It started as a one-time thing, but then—" "Save it," Robert interrupted. "My daughter deserves better than your excuses." Harold Turner, a respected attorney himself, turned to his son with a gravity that silenced the room. "Rick, I'll give you some legal advice as both your father and a lawyer. You need to agree to Alison's terms, whatever they may be. What you've done, the gaslighting, the theft of her property, that's not just infidelity. There are legal implications here." By evening's end, Rick had signed a hastily drafted separation agreement, acknowledging his infidelity and agreeing to move out immediately. Tori wrote a check for the value of the items she had used, her hands shaking as she signed it. And Alison, exhausted but resolute, watched as her husband packed a suitcase and walked out of their home. "I'll be at the Marriott downtown," he told her as he left. "We should talk tomorrow when things are calmer." "Don't count on it," Alison replied, shutting the door firmly behind him. The weeks following Rick's departure passed in a blur for Alison. She took a 2-week leave from work, grateful for an understanding boss who had recently gone through a divorce herself. The video evidence remained on her phone, unused but providing a sense of security should Rick attempt to rewrite the narrative of their separation. 1 month after the bathroom incident, Alison returned to work full-time, channeling her energy into her projects with renewed focus. Her team was finalizing a major campaign pitch for Harrison Developments, one of the largest real estate and investment firms in the Midwest, owned by billionaire Maxwell Max Harrison. "This account could change everything for us," her boss Laura explained during a strategy meeting. "Harrison Developments is expanding their luxury residential portfolio, and they want a complete rebranding. Maxwell Harrison is known for being hands-on with his marketing. He'll be at the presentation." Alison nodded, welcoming the professional challenge as a distraction. "I'll have the presentation ready by Thursday. We'll knock his socks off." On presentation day, Alison arrived early at Harrison Developments' downtown Chicago headquarters. Her team was escorted to a sleek conference room on the top floor, with panoramic views of Lake Michigan. As they set up, Alison felt a curious mix of nervousness and confidence. This project represented something important, proof that her professional identity remained intact, despite her personal life falling apart. At precisely 10 a.m., Maxwell Harrison entered the room, flanked by his executive team. Alison's first impression was one of understated power. Unlike the flashy executives she often encountered, Harrison carried himself with quiet confidence. Tall and broad-shouldered with salt and pepper hair, he wore a perfectly tailored navy suit with no tie. "Ms. Turner," he said, extending his hand as his eyes met hers. "I've heard impressive things about your work." "Mr. Harrison," she replied, her handshake firm. "We're excited to share our vision for your expansion project." For the next hour, Alison commanded the room, presenting a comprehensive rebranding strategy. Throughout her presentation, she noticed Harrison watching her intently, his focus unwavering even when other team members spoke. He asked insightful questions that Alison answered confidently, occasionally challenging his assumptions with data-backed alternatives. When the presentation concluded, Harrison addressed the room. "Thank you all for your time and preparation. This is exactly the fresh perspective we've been looking for." His eyes found Alison's again. "Ms. Turner, would you be willing to discuss some additional thoughts over lunch? There are aspects of this campaign I'd like to explore further." Lunch was arranged in Harrison's private dining room, adjacent to his office. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered stunning views, while a single table was set for two. "I hope you don't mind the privacy," Harrison explained. "Public restaurants tend to become networking opportunities rather than actual meals." As their meal progressed, The conversation shifted from marketing strategy to broader discussions about architecture, design, and Chicago's evolution. Allison was surprised by Harrison's genuine interest in her opinions and his willingness to share personal insights about his business philosophy. "Most people think real estate development is just about buildings and profits," he told her, leaning forward slightly. "But I've always seen it as storytelling. Each property has a narrative about the community, the people who will inhabit the space, the legacy it creates." The lunch stretched to nearly 2 hours. As they concluded, Harrison made an unexpected proposal. "Allison, if I may, I'd like you to be the direct liaison on this project. Your vision aligns precisely with what I've been trying to articulate to my team for months." Over the next several weeks, Allison found herself in frequent contact with Max Harrison. What began as project-related calls and emails gradually evolved into longer conversations and additional lunch meetings. Harrison was always professional, but there was an undeniable undercurrent of personal interest that both flattered and unsettled Allison. He requested another meeting. Allison told her friend Diane over drinks one evening. "That's the third this week. We could honestly handle most of these discussions via email or conference call. And you're complaining because..." Diane raised an eyebrow. "Allison, a gorgeous billionaire, is clearly interested in spending time with you. This is not a problem." Allison sighed, swirling her wine thoughtfully. "I'm not ready for anything like that. My divorce isn't even finalized yet." "No one's saying you have to marry him," Diane countered. "But maybe having someone appreciate you isn't the worst thing right now." The divorce proceedings were moving forward smoothly, largely because Rick seemed determined to resolve things quickly and quietly. His company had transferred him to their Seattle office, a move Allison suspected was partly to escape the professional embarrassment of the situation. Meanwhile, Max Harrison's interest in Allison became increasingly obvious. Project meetings would end with invitations to preview new properties or attend charity galas as his guest. Expensive thank-you gifts arrived at her office after productive sessions. A rare first-edition book on Chicago architecture she had mentioned admiring, a handcrafted leather portfolio from an artisan she had once written about in a blog post. "How does he even know these things about me?" Allison wondered aloud to Laura after a particularly thoughtful gift arrived. "He's worth billions, Allison," Laura replied pragmatically. "People with that kind of money have resources. And clearly, he's using them to learn about you." The governor's ball was a highlight of Chicago's social calendar, drawing political figures, business leaders, and local celebrities. Max invited Allison as his companion, framing it as a business opportunity while making it clear he enjoyed her company beyond their professional collaboration. The evening generated unexpected media attention. By morning, photos of Max looking at Allison with undisguised admiration were circulating in Chicago's society pages with headlines like "Harrison's New Muse, Billionaire Developer Besotted at Governor's Ball." "This is a disaster," Allison groaned, showing the article to Diane over emergency brunch. "The team will think I'm sleeping my way into client relationships." Before Allison could elaborate, her phone buzzed with an incoming call from Rick. Seeing her ex-husband's name on the screen after weeks of communication only through lawyers sent anxiety through her. "So you've moved on to Billionaires now?" Rick's voice was sharp with accusation. "That was fast. You were cheating on me in our bathtub, Rick. You don't get to have opinions about who I spend time with now." After ending the call, Allison noticed 3 missed texts from Max, commenting on her outfit from yesterday's meeting and mentioning a charity run she had participated in, an event she hadn't discussed with him. How did he know? The question lingered uncomfortably. "Have you ever noticed concerning patterns in someone's behavior toward you? Those little things that seemed odd but you dismissed? Share your experience spotting relationship red flags in the comments below. And if you're getting worried about Max's behavior, hit that like button. The warning signs are just beginning to appear." Alison's divorce was finalized on a Tuesday afternoon, the proceedings mercifully brief given Rick's continued desire to resolve matters quietly. She emerged from the courthouse feeling lighter than she had in months, the legal severing of her marriage providing a closure she hadn't realized she needed. Her phone buzzed with a text as she descended the courthouse steps. "Congratulations on your freedom. Dinner tonight to celebrate, Max." She stared at the message, wondering how he knew today was her court date. She hadn't mentioned it to him, deliberately keeping her personal legal matters separate from their professional relationship. The realization that he was tracking her divorce proceedings sent an uncomfortable chill through her despite the warm spring day. Before she could respond, another message appeared. "I have something important to discuss. 8 p.m. at Everest. I'll send a car." Everest was one of Chicago's most exclusive restaurants, known for its spectacular views and proposal-worthy romantic atmosphere. After several minutes of internal debate, Allison replied with a simple, "I'll be there." The day passed in a blur of work meetings and congratulatory calls from friends. By evening, Allison found herself in the back of Max's private car, being whisked toward downtown Chicago with a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. Everest was as spectacular as its reputation suggested. Max had reserved a private dining alcove with panoramic views of the city skyline, now glittering as dusk settled over Chicago. He stood when she arrived, pulling out her chair with old-world courtesy. "You look beautiful," he said simply, taking in her simple black dress. "Thank you for coming tonight." Dinner progressed with the impeccable service expected of a Michelin-starred restaurant. They discussed art, architecture, and Chicago politics, safe topics that maintained the intellectual connection they had established over recent months. It wasn't until dessert was served that Max shifted the conversation. "Allison, there's something I need to tell you," he began, his usual confidence seemingly tempered with uncharacteristic hesitation. "That sounds serious," she replied, trying to ease the sudden tension. "Not serious, just significant." He reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew not a ring box, as she had half expected, but a small leather portfolio. "This belongs to you." Puzzled, Allison accepted the portfolio and opened it. Inside was a collection of photographs of her. Allison leaving her office building. Allison jogging in Lincoln Park. Allison having lunch with Diane. Allison entering the courthouse earlier that day. "What is this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper as a cold dread settled in her stomach. "Evidence of my failure to maintain appropriate boundaries," Max admitted, his expression grave. "After our first meeting, I was intrigued by you. I asked my security team to gather background information, standard procedure for anyone we're considering for sensitive projects." "This goes far beyond background information," Max, Allison said, continuing to flip through the disturbing collection of surveillance photos spanning several months. "I know. What began as professional diligence became something more personal. I found myself wanting to know everything about you, your routines, your preferences, your progress toward freedom from a marriage that clearly brought you pain. So you had me followed. For months. The betrayal felt eerily familiar. Another man who had violated her trust, albeit in a different way than Rick had. "I did," Max acknowledged, making no attempt to justify his actions. "It was wrong. Completely inappropriate. I realized that today when my head of security delivered these photos of you leaving the courthouse. Seeing your expression, that moment of genuine relief and hope, made me understand how deeply I've overstepped." What happened next took Allison completely by surprise. Max reached into his pocket again, this time producing a small velvet box. He didn't open it or drop to one knee, but simply placed it on the table between them. "Despite my inappropriate actions, or perhaps because I'm finally confronting them, I want you to know my intentions. I've fallen in love with you, Allison. I want to build a life with you, if you'll have me. Not tonight, not tomorrow, but when you're ready, if you can ever forgive this breach of trust." Allison stared at the unopened ring box, a symbol of both promise and presumption. "Max, you barely know me." "I know enough," he countered gently. "I know you're resilient, brilliant, and unwilling to accept betrayal. I know you value honesty, even painful honesty, and I know I want the chance to earn your trust properly. In the weeks that followed Max's confession and unexpected proposal, Allison retreated to evaluate her life's unexpected trajectory. She took a 2-week leave from work, declining all contact with Max during this period of reflection. She traveled to her parents' home in Michigan, finding solace in the familiar surroundings of her childhood. 2 marriage proposals in 5 years, her mother observed as they sat on the back porch one evening, though under very different circumstances. Max didn't exactly propose, Allison corrected, watching fireflies appear in the gathering dusk. He presented the possibility of a proposal. After showing you he'd been stalking you, her father added with characteristic bluntness. Not exactly romantic. It wasn't stalking, Dad. It was overzealous security vetting that became something more complicated. Even as she defended Max's actions, Allison recognized the rationalization in her words. But yes, it was a violation of privacy, a significant one. The question isn't whether what he did was wrong, it clearly was, her mother said thoughtfully. The question is whether his willingness to confess outweighs the original transgression. This was the central dilemma Allison had been wrestling with. Max had violated her privacy in ways that echoed Rick's betrayal, yet he had voluntarily exposed his actions, seemingly prepared to lose her rather than continue a relationship founded on deception. There was a strange integrity in that choice, however belated. Rick lied to my face for months, Allison said quietly. He made me question my own sanity. Max crossed serious boundaries, but then chose to be honest when he could have hidden it forever. Honesty after wrongdoing isn't the same as not doing wrong in the first place, her father pointed out. No, it's not, Allison agreed, but it's something different than Rick's behavior too. Each night, Allison weighed these 2 betrayals differently. Rick's affair had been deliberate, calculated, sustained. Max's surveillance began as standard business practice, but evolved into something inappropriate, yet he had stopped himself, recognized the violation, and confessed without external pressure. By the time she prepared to return to Chicago, Allison had made her decision. She would neither fully dismiss Max nor immediately forgive him. Instead, she would establish clear, firm boundaries, a framework within which trust might eventually rebuild if he proved worthy of a second chance. After returning to Chicago, Allison requested a meeting with Max, choosing a public park for their conversation rather than any private or intimate setting. He arrived precisely on time, looking both hopeful and resigned. "Thank you for agreeing to see me," he said as they began walking along the lakefront path. "I've had a lot to think about," Allison replied. "What you did, having me followed, collecting information about my personal life without my knowledge, it's not something I can easily dismiss." "I don't expect you to dismiss it," Max said. "I expect it to factor significantly into whatever decision you make about me, about us." They walked in silence for several minutes, the September breeze flowing across Lake Michigan. "Here's what I've concluded," Allison finally said. "I can't accept a proposal from someone who's known me primarily through surveillance reports, rather than genuine connection. But I'm also not willing to dismiss the potential between us based solely on your admittedly poor judgment." Max nodded slowly. "That seems fair. What does that mean practically?" "It means we start over," Allison stated firmly. "No security teams, no background checks, no surprises. Just 2 people getting to know each other properly, with appropriate boundaries and complete honesty." "I'd like that very much," Max replied, the relief evident in his voice. "And it means I'll be taking a step back from the Harrison Development's account at work. Laura will resume primary oversight. I'll still contribute strategically, but we need professional distance if we're going to explore a personal relationship." This stipulation clearly surprised him, but after a moment's consideration, Max nodded again. "I understand, though I'll miss our working relationship." "It's a necessary boundary," Allison insisted. "One of many we'll need to establish." Over the following months, they began again, with coffee dates, museum visits, and casual dinners at public restaurants. Max attended therapy to address his controlling tendencies. Allison maintained her independence, refusing his gifts and insisting on paying her own way. They each revealed themselves gradually through conversation rather than investigation. When Max finally held her hand for the first time, 3 months into their new beginning, the connection felt earned rather than assumed. Have you had to set firm boundaries in a relationship to protect yourself? Did it strengthen your connection or reveal incompatibility? Let us know in the comments. And if you value yourself enough to demand respect, hit that like button and subscribe to see how Allison's journey with Maxwell concludes. Are you nervous? Diane asked, adjusting Allison's necklace as they stood in the preparation room of the Chicago Cultural Center. Strangely, no, Allison replied truthfully. It feels right. A year had passed since that fateful walk along the lakefront, a year of intentional dating, separate therapist visits for both Allison and Max, and the gradual building of trust between two people determined to create something authentic from problematic beginnings. Maxwell Harrison had proven himself capable of respecting boundaries once they were clearly established. The professional distance had allowed their personal connection to develop on its own merits, without the power imbalance of their previous business relationship. Remember when he tried to send you that ridiculous bouquet to your office, and you sent it back? Diane laughed, adjusting the veil. He learned quickly, Allison smiled. That was the last grand gesture for months. Instead of lavish gifts and exclusive restaurants, their relationship had evolved through honest conversations in coffee shops, walks along the lakeshore, and eventually mutual vulnerability. Max had opened up about the loneliness that had driven his controlling behavior, while Allison shared her fears about trusting again after Rick's betrayal. 6 months into their new beginning came a pivotal moment. During a private dinner at Allison's apartment, Max arrived with a familiar leather portfolio. These should have been destroyed long ago, he said, placing the surveillance photos on her kitchen table. I'd like us to do it together. They had burned the photos in her fireplace, watching as the evidence of his inappropriate fixation turned to ash, a symbolic end to the power imbalance that had marked their early connection. The proposal, when it eventually came, happened not at an exclusive restaurant or exotic destination, but during a simple morning at Allison's apartment. They had been discussing weekend plans over coffee when Max suddenly set down his cup and reached for her hand. I've been carrying this for months, waiting for the right moment, he said, producing a ring that was notably different from the one he had shown her a year earlier. But I've realized there is no perfect moment, only perfect clarity about what I want. And what I want, Allison, is a lifetime with you, built on truth, respect, and the love that has grown between us this past year. She had accepted without hesitation, secure in the knowledge that this decision was made with full awareness of both his flaws and his capacity for growth. Now, standing in her wedding gown, Allison reflected on the unlikely journey that had brought her to this day. From the devastating discovery in her bathroom, to the strange obsession of a billionaire, to the careful construction of a relationship worthy of commitment, none of it had followed any expected path. Your father's here, Diane announced, opening the door to admit Robert, handsome in his formal attire. Ready, sweetheart? He asked, offering his arm. Ready, Allison confirmed, taking a deep breath as the first notes of music signaled the beginning of the ceremony. As Allison moved forward with her new life, she carried with her not just the pain of past betrayal, but the wisdom it had generated. Through the most unexpected circumstances, she had discovered essential truths about relationships that would guide her forever. First, she learned that honesty, even difficult, uncomfortable honesty, forms the foundation of any meaningful connection. Max's voluntary confession about his surveillance, while troubling, revealed a capacity for accountability that Rick had never shown. It was this willingness to face consequences, rather than hide behind lies, that made forgiveness possible. Second, she recognized that boundaries aren't limitations but protections. By insisting on professional separation and emotional independence, she created the space for a healthy relationship to form. These boundaries didn't restrict their connection, they strengthened it by ensuring it grew from mutual respect rather than power imbalance. Third, Alison understood that true change requires consistent action, not mere promises. Max's year-long commitment to therapy, his respect for her terms, and his patience during their gradual reconnection demonstrated genuine transformation. Unlike Rick's repeated assurances that meant nothing, Max's behavior aligned with his words. Perhaps most importantly, Alison discovered her own resilience. The woman who once questioned her sanity while being gaslit by her husband had become someone who confidently established terms and held others accountable. Her experiences hadn't hardened her, they had clarified her values and strengthened her self-respect. Sometimes the worst moments of our lives become doorways to our best futures, Alison would later reflect at her wedding reception. Not because suffering is necessary, but because overcoming it reveals our true capacity for growth. The path from betrayal to genuine partnership wasn't linear or predictable. It required courage to trust again, wisdom to set boundaries, and discernment to recognize sincere change. But for Alison and Max, this challenging journey created a foundation far stronger than what either had known before. Has betrayal ever led you to unexpected growth or a better situation? What boundaries have helped you build healthier relationships? Share your story in the comments below. And if this journey of healing and transformation resonated with you, smash that subscribe button and notification bell, because extraordinary stories happen every day, and we're here to share them with you.